Assalamu alaikum, everyone. This is Muhammad Abdullah on behalf of IslamiCity. Once again, welcome to the Daily Quranic Reflections with Dr. Aslam. We have finally reached the end of these reflections. Today is the last reflection. We'll be covering the last juz of the Quran. It is bittersweet. We have accomplished a lot. And during these circumstances where we're all at home, we still have been able to benefit, from Dr. Aslam and being connected to the Quran, understanding the Quran, and spending some time with him and trying to become closer to our faith, understanding our faith, living a practical life in faith. Dr. Aslam, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much. Today is the 29th day and the 30th night of the month of fasting. I would be very honest with you, when we started, I was not sure if I would be able to make this month, because of what is happening all around is really very, very challenging. And I prayed almost every day that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the strength and the means to complete this understanding of the Quran through this channel that we are doing. It is really a blessing that we were able to reflect on the message of the Quran, in addition to reading it and enjoying the recitation, and also we all had the opportunity to witness the Laylatul Qadr, the night of powers. We are sad for those brothers who passed away in Southern California and in different parts of the world, in the country as a whole. And many of those people were the ones that we knew. And we pray and we hope that may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant them paradise. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give sabr to their families and give them the strength to endure this loss. This juz comprises 560 ayahs of the Quran, the largest number of ayahs in any juz, and it has some 37 surahs of the Quran. I will first quickly go over a brief summary of each surah, and then focus on a few ayahs of this juz and a few surahs of the juz that gives the crux of the message that is outlined here. Surah An-Naba gives an important news or message. It tells us that the day of decision is coming, and this beautiful and orderly universe is going to the day of decisions. Allah will bring all people to judgment. Those who denied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will face the consequences, and those who did righteous things will get the reward. Surah Naziyat speaks about Allah's angels who take the souls at the time of death. As Allah has power to take away the souls, as He has created the whole universe, He also has the power to resurrect people after the death. The story of Prophet Musa والسلام, and Fir'aun is mentioned to warn the people about the consequences of arrogant pride, which leads to the denial of the truth. Surah Abasa begins with the incident of a blind man who came to seek the knowledge, while the chiefs of Mecca were denying the message. It talks about the greatness of Allah's message. Those who will accept this message, they will benefit from it. But those who deny this message, they bringing harm to their own selves. Just a quick note here that many of the Mufassirin have written that it was the Prophet who about whom this chapter is talking about. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not name any individual, and it is highly unlikely that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam who championed the cause of the people who were downtrodden, who stood up for those things, whose initial struggle was for the dignity of those people, and whose initial message was initially accepted by those people, would have this kind of behavior. It is probably referring to some other people, and the Quran is basically pointing out to them that in matters of faith, status and hierarchies don't matter. What matters is the sincerity. And certainly we cannot say that the Prophet ﷺ ever showed any kind of insensitivity to anyone because of his physical conditions or because of his intellectual conditions. But this is a minority opinion, and I tend to agree with that minority opinion. Surah Infitar reminds human beings that Allah has given them a wonderful proportionate shape, but they and the whole universe are totally dependent upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the creation has a purpose, and the day of judgment will come. Surah Mutaffifin warns those who commit fraud in business. It reminds people about honest dealings, and the righteous will prosper. Allah has the record of every person. Surah Inshiqaq tells that this word has no permanence. It also speaks about the record of deeds and rewards of righteous and the punishment of those who deviate. It reminds people to pay attention to the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surah Al-Buruj speaks about the persecution of the believers. Allah watches over his own people and he will bring his enemies to judgment. And the surah warns the opponents of this message. Their end might be the same as that of many nations before them who denied Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's message. Surah Tariq. Everything in this universe is working under the protection and supervision of the great keeper, that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The creation of human being as well as the creation of this universe is not a joke, and the creation is a serious work of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his creation. Surah Al-Ala speaks about the praise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Most High. He created everything. He created the human beings and gave them the capacity to make progress. Men can make progress if you obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and can make the life easy for the people around them. The Prophet should continue giving the message to others. Those who accept it will benefit from it, but those who will reject it will be losers. Then we come to Surah Al-Ghasiyah. The surah talks about the coming calamity that will cover everything. The humanity will be divided into two groups: those who are frightened, tired, and exhausted groups, and those who are joyful and happy. Then the attention is drawn to this wonderful, to the wonders that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is asked to remind people about that wonders. Surah Al-Fajr talks about the judgment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reward and punishment that will take place in the hereafter. Surah Al-Shams tells that as there is a contrast between sun and moon, night and day, heaven and earth, so there is also a big difference between good and evil. Surah Al-Layl, it has basically the same theme as the previous one, but it tells us about two ways of life, good way and evil way, and the consequences of both ways. Surah Al-Duha gives the message of hope and consolation. It reminds about Allah's blessing and the way the believers should take these blessings. Just one quick note here. وَوَجَدَكَ ضَالًّا is one of the verses that appears in this surah, and many translators have put it, we have found you astray. That is also beyond the comprehension that the Prophet ﷺ went astray anytime in his lifetime. Even when he was not a prophet, he did not commit anything that went against the Quranic and the divine dictates. What the Dallan means, that we found you searching for the truth. And Dal means searching for the truth also, the Prophet, and it's saying that the Prophet ﷺ is searching for the truth. Surah Al-Inshirah, which tells us that the believers should not give up under difficult circumstances. Surah Al-Teen, it concludes that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's judgment will come. Surah Al-Alaq, it is the first 5 verses of this surah are the first one. that were revealed to the Prophet. Then the rest of the surah was revealed when the message was presented to the people of Mecca, and they began threatening the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The surah speaks about the humble beginning of human beings, but the high position that they can receive if they follow the message of Allah. Surah Al-Qadr talks about the majesty and the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Quran and the birth of the Quran. Surah Al-Bayyinah tells us that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam came with a clear message and a divine book. Surah Al-Zilzal talks about the life after death and that all deeds will be exposed on the day of judgment. Surah Al-Adiyat tells us the ungratefulness of human beings, where it leads to. It describes the wild and unruly lifestyle of people before Islam. It also reminds that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is aware of the hidden secrets of every human being. So the Al-Qari'ah gives the warnings about the day of judgment. It will be the day of great clamor. People will be scattered and mountains will crumble. Only those whose balance will be weight will prosper. Surah Takasur talks about the evil consequences of materialism and hoarding, and Surah Al-Asr tells that human beings are generally losers if they do not follow the divine guidance and translate their words into actions. Surah Al-Humaza talks about some of the moral problems that affect the wealthy, and then it gives them warning of consequences of these evils. Surah Al-Fil reminds about the event before the advent of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam when Kaaba was attacked by the armies of, from the southern part of Arabia, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala destroyed them. Surah Al-Quraysh reminded people of Mecca that it was Allah who gave them honor and prestige among the tribes due to their responsibilities towards His house. Surah Al-Ma'un means, that religion is primarily a social service, helping the poor and the needy. Surah Al-Kawthar gives good news and comfort that Allah's message will prevail. Surah Al-Kafirun tells us that there cannot be any compromise in matters of faith and worship. Surah Al-Nasr, which came in Medina, and basically it was revealed to the Prophet with the message that believers will ultimately succeed. Surah Al-Lahab was revealed to condemn the behavior of one of the relatives of the Prophet who stood against his message. The surah gives a warning to those who oppose the message. One important thing is that the surah was revealed, Surah Abu Lahab, and you could read the translation where Abu Lahab is being condemned for his rejection of the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Abu Lahab lived nearly 8 years after the revelation of this particular verse. If Abu Lahab had accepted Islam, everything that was being predicted in this surah would have become null and void. But this was the majesty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this was the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He said something that He knew for sure that Abu Lahab would never come to Islam. Surah Al-Ikhlas is one of the greatest surahs of the Quran. It speaks about the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Surah Al-Falaq, it reminds us that evil is lurching everywhere and everything can become harmful. We should always be conscious, do right things, and seek Allah's protection. And Surah Al-Nas tells us that the Satan is always against the human beings and he puts wrong whispers in their minds. We should seek Allah's protection from Satan and his whispering. This is a very appropriate, and this is how the book comes to an end. And it is basically a book that claims that it is providing protection to the people. So this in general is the overview of this just comprising 560 ayahs of the Quran. Let us look at some of the specific things, which basically through these verses are selected primarily to give you an idea of the message of the entire Quran. The verses that I would be referring to summarizes the the entire message of the Quran within the context of monotheism and within the context of belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his message. The first one is قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. It is 87 verse 14. What it means? That the one who attains purity indeed succeeds. Purity in every sense of the term. The physical, the social, the spiritual, the material. In every sense of the term, purity in relationship, purity in intentions. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ تَزَكَّى. And the Quran is telling us how to purify ourselves. And Quran is also telling us that when we purify ourselves, what benefit we will have in our self, in our family life, in our community, in our world, and in the life hereafter. So this is one thing that we must keep in mind, that the Quran is giving us a tool to purify ourselves, is giving us a message that would enable us to succeed in this life. Then the Quran also talks about Al-Fajr, and the verse 17 to 30. Yes, كلا بل لا تكرمون اليتيم ولا تحاضون على طعام المسكين وتأكلون التراث أكلا لما. Here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala until the end, and you can look at it because of the paucity of time, I would not read the Arabic and read the translation, just summarize that. The responsibility of people towards the orphans, towards the helpless people, towards the hopeless people, towards those people who are downtrodden is tremendous. But people neglect that responsibility. They don't realize that they will have to be held accountable for what they are doing. But Quran also says that there would be souls, there would be individuals, there will be people who would fulfill their responsibilities, and when they will leave this world, they will leave in a state of consciousness, in a state of comfort, and then as soon as they leave this world, they would be in the company of those people who are blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and who are loved and liked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So again, the message is coming that human beings collectively, those who believe, should devote themselves and their resources to the welfare and well-being of those people who are in this kind of conditions where they need the help of others. Let's go to 91, 8 to 11. That tells us the dilemma that each one of us faces in our life almost every day. فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. Each one of us has a tendency to build or to destroy. قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا. Those people who purify themselves, they are successful and they build. وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. And those who ignore it, they destroy themselves. So again, describing the actual, the human potential, that they can be a constructive force and they could also be a destructive force. But the construction would depend on their adherence to the process of self-purification, that constantly it has to be done. You cannot assume that you have achieved a perfect level, no matter what level of iman you have and what level of work you have. You have to be constantly at guard. You have to be constantly understand that. In that respect, there's one incident that please keep that in mind. Imam Hanbal, a great Muslim scholar, when he was on deathbed, and when everybody thought that the time of his departure has come, his son came to him and he said that, Dad, you have made it and you have defeated Shaitan. Imam Hanbal is on the deathbed. Imam Hanbal is the one who used to teach people what Islam is, and he says, not yet. It's a very powerful statement. It says that until we go we are still struggling with ourselves. And that is something that we should say. Don't ever assume that we have found perfection. Don't ever assume that the iman that we have is at the pinnacle of iman. Don't think that we have no what you call desire to commit wrong, or no tendency to commit wrong. It can happen anytime, any minute, any second, and we should be aware of that. For alhamaha fujuraha wa taqwa, because human beings have those two tendencies. Qad aflaha man zakkaha, those purify themselves are the one who succeed. Wa qad khaba man dassaha, those who bury it, who ignore it, are the ones who suffer the consequences and who are destroyed. And then we come to verse 103, 1 to 3. Of course, it is making an empirical judgment on the humanity. It is telling that the human beings have always been in a state of loss. Not because Allah wanted them to lose, but because they either did not believe in Iman, or if they believed in Iman, they did not substantiate that Iman with work, or they worked good, but they did not believe in Iman. So what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, a combination of two, is the one that we have that guarantees success. So in fact, this short surah is giving us, the description of three types of people. One, who don't believe in any message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who are totally concerned about this life, and they take God for granted, or they take it basically a token of their acceptance of Him, yet without doing anything that He has asked us to do. Who are immersed in this life, who don't care about anything else except themselves, their interests. There are second, who are only concerned about the life hereafter, reciting, chanting, worshipping. Every minute of their life is devoted to this one. And then there is third category that maintains a balance between the two. That they work in this world, they live in this world, they try to achieve whatever they can, but they all simultaneously do not lose their sight in terms of submitting themselves to God. The mu'mineen are those who are the third category. The first category and the second categories, don't think that this is for the non-Muslims. Muslims could also be part of this one, and Muslims are part of this one when we look at it critically in all those things. And then the next one is 107. The whole verse is basically repeating the message that the religion is not a show-off thing. Religion is not pretension. أَرَأَيْتَ الَّذِي يُكَذِّبُ بِالدِّينِ وَذَلِكَ الَّذِي يَدْعُو الْيَتِيمَ وَلَا يَحُضُّ عَلَى طَعَامِ الْمِسْكِينِ. And then فَوَيْلٌ لِلْمُصَلِّينَ. That those who deny people their right, who do not take care of the destitute, are the ones who are falsifying religion, are the ones who are mocking religion, are the ones who are proving through their actions they don't care about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even when they are praying, they are showing it off. They're pretending. فذلك الذي يدعو اليتيم ولا يحض على طعام المسكين فويل للمصلين الذين هم صلاتهم ساهون والذين هم يراءون ويمنعون الماعون. When they hear that their neighbors, their people are in distress, they turn away from that. They don't take care of that. And this is what the essence of the faith is. Purify yourself. Save yourself from the tendency to rebel. Make sure that within your means you live, and then you devote part of your resources to help and support those who are in need of those things, whether among your own relatives and among others, and make sure that you remain committed to this divine guidance and this message. And this, in essence, is the faith. The prayers without all these things are meaningless. The fasting without all this kind of commitment is meaningless. The rituals, if they are devoid of these work, they have no meaning in the sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that is all that matters. Religion is not so that people could tell me how pious I am. Religion is that Allah could take me as His servant and as the one committed to Him. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم.
Thank you, Dr. Aslam. On Wal Asr, I've heard. Correct me if I'm wrong. There's a tradition that says that if Allah Subhanahu wa Taala wanted to reveal just one surah, this surah would have been enough as
Indeed,
guidance
indeed.
for humanity.
Yes.
And then in this last surah that you covered, Allah is.
I forgot one particular surah which was in my mind. That was Surah 19, verse 11 to 17.
I can bring that up.
Yes.
Surah 9.
Because that is also very telling.
Can you repeat that again, please?
Surah 90, verse 11 to 17.
It was there, but I think you missed it.
No, وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةُ فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ أَوْ إِطْعَامٌ فِي يَوْمٍ ذِي مَسْغَبَةٍ. It is, I think, maybe I have it wrongly presented. It is, I think, Surah Balad. Yeah, this is the one. فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ. Do you know what is the most difficult task? فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ. To liberate people from the bondage in which they are. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا الْعَقَبَةُ. And you know what is the most difficult task? فَكُّ رَقَبَةٍ. To free the people from the bondage in which they have been placed. How? إِطْعَامٌ فِي يَوْمٍ ذِي مَسْغَبَةٍ. Or to feed people when they are hungry. يَتِيمًا ذَا مَقْرَبَةٍ. And to uplift those people who are orphans. أَوْ مِسْكِينًا ذَا مَتْرَبَةٍ. And then to uplift the downtrodden people. ثُمَّ كَانَ مِنَ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْمَرْحَمَةِ. Then your claim about your commitment to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and your believing in the patience and the mercy would have any meaning. So that goes along with the message that we read in Surah Al-Fajr, that one should be concerned about those who have been left without much resources in this world as a result of whatever conditions and whatever situation. So please go ahead now.
Right. There's a question that we're getting, and the question is elaboration on Surah Nas 114, Ayah 4. Let me bring that up.
Yes.
Yes. So this is the Surah Nas.
Yes.
Against the harm of the slinking whisperer.
Yes.
So I guess they're asking elaboration on this. What does this mean?
It means that you would always come across people, and you would always come across groups that would try to whisper in your mind and your heart ill feelings towards others, ill feelings towards Allah, ill feelings towards the message of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or your fellow human beings, or anything that is positive. They would try to fill your heart with evil. They will try to contaminate your purity and your innocence, and they would try to influence their things because they have a hidden agenda, or they have some evil ideas and evil thought. So what Allah is saying is that if you come under my protection, how do you come under His protection? By following what He's saying. How do we follow that? That we do not believe in any news that is brought to us by anyone who is not reliable, or any information or any kind of thing that divide people and that create hatred against others. So this is how you take the protection, that you say, I'm not going to listen to it. I'm not going to follow that. I'm not going to give any credence to what is being said about this individual or this particular group. And the Quran is full with that kind of examples where people, we are asked not to believe in all those things. So it is from this, the evil of those people who try to hurt you and others by doing all those kind of things.
And of course, that is one of the prime functions of Iblis also, right? That
Indeed.
he whispers, but we
Yes.
cannot just put everything on Iblis. A lot of people take on that function themselves in terms of whispering things and trying to.
We should realize one thing. Iblis does not act. We act. Iblis can only whisper.
Mhm.
But the power to act is ours. Iblis does not force us to act. He may come up with an argument that may be forceful, but still we are the one who make that decision. And we are the ones who commit that evil. So this is a distinction that we have to keep in mind, that Iblis would not hold our hand and say, commit this one. If someone gives me a glass of wine and say, drink, I still have the free will to reject it. And that is what we should keep in mind.
Okay. So let me go back to some of the ayahs that I had selected. So here is Abasa, chapter 80, verse 11 and 12.
Yes.
Indeed, this Quran is a lesson for those who wish to be taught, should learn. And I thought this was a different way where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing people, where in other verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that this is the Quran, it is full with wisdom, it is full with reason, and so on. But here, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is directly saying something that this is the Quran, you should, and learn from it.
Indeed, this is what is being implied, that it is full with wisdom, it is full with guidance, it is full with mercy. And then here it is being said that this is what you should learn. This is your textbook. You should learn from it.
Now, and it gives you it's giving the option also, those who wish to be taught.
Indeed.
To be learned. Indeed. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not forcing anyone. He's saying that, look, this is the lesson. Here it is for you. If you want to learn from this.
Yes. You know, when we go to high school, when we attend the classes, we all are exposed to similar kind of textbooks, but there are some who out-excel others, who make an understanding. Some are dropouts. So it is quite possible that many people may drop out from that understanding. Many people simply, rely on the notes of the teachers without questioning. Some people would apply their mind. So this is what is being implied here.
Okay. So the next verse is 84:19, and if we can look at this in context, I was looking at some of the tafsir on this, but I still wanted to see if you could clarify. So if we look at this Surah 84:19 in context, the verse before this and after this, before this it says, and by the moon, when it waxes full, you will certainly pass from one state to another. So what is the matter with them that they do not believe? So, and in the tafsir, I was reading that from state to state, I couldn't figure out exactly what state they're talking about. And here it's talking about the phases of the moon also first.
Yes, it is an allegorical reference to the phases of moon, that it is born. Before born, it is in a state of crescent, and then it becomes moon. Then it starts evolving into half moon, quarter moon, and then, you know, 1/4, 1/3, 2/3, and then finally full form. So this is how a condition in a spiritual, in physical, in social, in cultural sense, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning about human being, that you have the potential to shine fully. And you can if you follow the guidance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by giving the example of the moon, it says that moon is running because of the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And giving this example to human beings, saying that if you also follow the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will also reach to that pinnacle of brightness in your character, from, you know, from nothing to gradually moving, and then gradually and evolving yourself into that kind of situation. So it's an allegorical reference to human journey towards the truth, and human journey in one's own physical sense and in one's own social sense.
So if we limit this only to the age that we are passing from one stage to another, we're limiting the true meaning and the full potential of this ayah.
Indeed. I mean, it is, you know, saying that the people, it may also mean that the people, all the people are not at the same level of Iman, not the same level of their commitment to God, not the same level at the commitment of their understanding of God. So that also tells them.
Right. Okay. And then in this verse, Surah Fajr, verse 2 and 3. So
yes. وَالْفَجْرِ وَلَيَالٍ عَشْرٍ وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوِتْرِ وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرِ هَلْ فِي ذَلِكَ قَسَمٌ لَذِي حِجْرٍ.
So by the 10 nights, by even and odd. In the commentary, it says this refers to the days of Zil-Hijjah. But this is talking about nights and even and odd.
You see, yes, one has to go back into the background. What was happening before the message that the Prophet ﷺ started delivering, and before Islam made it a compulsory and obligatory article of faith, the first 10 days of Zil-Hijjah by the pagans were celebrated as a partying function. Men and women would drink and would assemble in the Kaaba and would do partying, would spend the nights in, singing, in dancing, in drinking, and all those kind of things. They will gamble. وَالشَّفْعِ وَالْوِتْرِ means odd and even. That they would use the time to gamble. They would use this time to bet on things. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَسْرِ until the night passes. So this was a kind of practice. Then the Quran says, هَلْ فِي ذَلِكَ قَسَمٌ لَذِي حِجْرٍ. Do you have any idea what happened to the people of Zil-Hijr? What happened to the people of Ad and Samud? What happened to the people of Fir'aun? These were the people who were also indulging themselves in merrymaking, in partying, without any regard to the sanctity of the place, without any regard to the sanctity of human being, without any regard to the sanctity of the divine guidance. They all faced the consequences of their actions. So it is the Quran is referring to those people who were indulging those kind of things and teaching the Muslims that, look, the purpose of these nights was not to have those kind of parties. The purpose of this night is to reflect on who you are and what you stand for, and what is the purpose of that faith. So it is in this particular context. And if you look the entire surah, then it talks about the yatama, the orphans, the destitutes, the poor, the people, and then talks about the misuse of the resources that the people do. So it is in that particular context this verse is talking about. So it is referring to the behavior of the people in the past, And it is asking the believers not to turn their religious institutions as institutions for actions that deviate from the right path.
So when we talk about the first 10 days of Zulhijjah, that is talking about the value, the prestige, and the spirituality of the days. But here, the 10 nights of Zulhijjah is the negative aspect that the pagans used to practice.
Yes, yes, indeed, indeed.
I see. Okay, that's very interesting. Thank you so much for explaining that. That makes a lot more sense. And then Surah 89, Al-Fajr 7, it's referring to of Iram, the city of lofty pillars.
Yes. Yes, a few years ago, there was an article in Wall Street Journal about the research that is being conducted in Rub al-Khali, in the Arabian desert, where they are going deep into the underground and looking at the civilization, which is built on pillars, which is built on high buildings. And I think someone from the Hollywood was also doing that research and making a movie on that. I don't know what happened to that movie. So Quran is referring to that a civilization has stood, and that civilization, in Surah Al-Fajr also mentioned Ramazan, that the people of Samud and people of Ad were indulging in this kind of thing also. So yes.
Right. So it's a very interesting story. I come from an aerospace background, and this was back in 1989 when there were two attorneys who are hunting for the lost city of Iram. And this is one of the lost cities, like you have the lost city of Atlantis, and this is referring to the lost city of Iram, where they sanctioned a research with the shuttle spaceship to do subsurface topography, and they found this city. And of course, the only place where this city is mentioned is in the Quran, city of Iram. And they were able to find that city, and they were able to find that it was built around these 8 pillars, basically. And this is a fascinating story about the people of Ad and how they built this city, and how we connect it to our modern times in terms of these two attorneys actually who are amateur anthropologists, archaeologists who are looking for the city and found the city also. So if anyone wants to do research, please do that research, city of Iram, or it's also referred to as the city of Ubair, U-B-A-R, Ubair also. And then the last verse is Surah 94, Ayah 4, that we created man for toil and trial.
Yes. Yes, it is telling us that the human being will have to work hard, will have to toil in this world for his survival, because there are so much elements, physical and social and cultural and political, that he will come, or she, or they will come across. And they will have to go through this trial. So don't think that the life is a bed of roses. Don't think that everything comes that easy. Be prepared to work hard. Be prepared to be strong. Be prepared to face the trials, and be prepared to challenge them and overcome them. So this is, again, when you join the army, they tell you this is what you have to do. You will have to get up early in the morning, 4 o'clock. You will have to have a 10-mile lap. You will have to do all this, that, all those kind of things. So when you come into this world, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling that life is tough, and you will have to prepare yourself. And the Quran is telling you how to prepare yourself in every sense of the term, not spiritually only, physically also. You should be tough. So this is what it basically speaks.
Well, excellent. I think that was a very appropriate verse to end our Quranic reflections on, that this is a struggle for all of us. It's a toil for all of us. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us, this is the Quran, it's a lesson. If we want to learn, it's our option, whether we want to learn from it or not. I hope and pray that may Allah give us guidance to learn
You
from
know,
this.
every day we face this challenge. We slip in our understanding of Iman, in our strength of Iman. From 10, we come to 6, we come to 4, we come to 3. And then we make another effort to go back to that level where we were, or even higher. And this struggle would go on. And if anyone thinks that we are not capable of committing wrong and mistakes and coming down from our level, they get it wrong. This is not what the Quran is saying. Quran is saying, yes, this struggle is a lifelong struggle.
Right. Well, Dr. Aslam, again,
So inshallah, tomorrow we will have the conclusion. And tomorrow I would request that if you could ask the people who have been attending to send you questions, so that the questions can be referred to, or if you can also raise questions about whatever you may have heard about during the last 30 days. But it was a wonderful journey into understanding the Quran, and certainly we hope that the journey would continue, and each year and each month we would have some sessions where we can focus on our understanding of the Quran, a particular passage, a particular surah, a particular ayah, so that we could all grow in knowledge. And inshallah, with this medium that you have created, with that institution that you are building, all this is possible.
Inshallah, absolutely. This is a good exercise for us. Of course, end of Ramadan, finishing the Quran does not mean that we have finished our search and exploration of the Quran. We will continue this. I will let everyone else know that we will schedule more sessions with you, maybe a weekly session or whatever you think is appropriate, Dr.
Inshallah,
Aslam.
And our vision is that, inshallah, come next Ramadan, we would have 3-4 young people who would have studied the Quran in this 1 year and would then come forward with their understanding of the Quranic message and would enlighten all of us with how they perceive, how they feel about it. And certainly IslamiCity can play a very important role, that it can identify those individuals, those young people, and ask them to prepare. They
Right.
have the whole 1 year. And inshallah, as people would know more about it, as people would donate more about these kind of services and activities, IslamiCity will grow, inshallah, and will become an institution in the renaissance of Islam in the world as a whole, inshallah.
Inshallah. So we will meet tonight, and it's going to be an open session for us.
Yes, it will be an open session.
General topics and so on.
Yes.
So if anyone does have any questions, please let me know. You can post questions on the page itself, and we'll address those questions. And inshallah, we'll wrap up the session tomorrow, and you can conclude, Dr. Aslam.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all that we have tried to understand in this month is nothing but your words and your guidance. Our intentions were sincere, and our understanding may be faulty. Our interpretation may be wrong, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we made it with sincerity. If we have made it wrong, if we have made mistakes, correct us. Give us the inspiration to learn things in the manner in which they should be learned. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this knowledge useful for us and our families. Protect our families, protect our children, protect our youth, protect our boys and girls. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect everyone. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this trying and period of trial, we are devoting ourselves to you and we are seeking your guidance and your help. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al mursaleen walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.